Hello.
Can you hear me well?
I can hear you well. We are now starting the program. The song is coming on. Bill Staines is playing Bridges. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bridges Programming. Bonnie, would you say something? And Dennis say something.
Sure. Good morning. Glad to be with you.
Dennis?
They are languages and letters. They are poetry and all. They are love and understanding.
Okay, we are starting a little late today because we have more technical difficulties. So we're going to try to see how this comes out. Unfortunately, we're using the phone. Skype sort of crapped out on us for some reason.
Technology is technology.
This is Bridges, and listening to Bridges programming Wednesday World Call-In with Dennis Carius, Bonnie and from Bonfire, and Susan Coleman. You can call in, you know how to do that, on Google Hangouts. So here we are.
They are fear, blind, suspicion. They are pride.
We need some
They are
encouragement.
dark and soul foreboding, and they're also very wise.
We need encouragement.
Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross through the song. Let us span another canyon, let us write another wrong. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way.
Okay, welcome to Bridges Programming. This is I'm Jeff Bella. With me is Susan Comont, and we have
Hello.
and the actual star of the show is Bonfire, and Dennis Carius. And hello, guys. How are you?
Hi. Good morning. I'm actually not a star. I'm an incendiary.
Okay, you sound good. I don't know I don't know the quality, but we've been doing this whole thing. The volume is loud enough. Dennis, talk up and let me see how you sound on volume.
Oh, wow. I can talk up. This is great.
Okay. Well, I don't know how we pulled this off, but let's see how it comes out on the final product, on the final. But we're doing the best we can. I'm going to give this this is brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measurement or measure, and it's called the HREM.org. It's to say that all humanity must have their basic needs met, and we have to agree upon that with a measurement based on energy units for food, which is energy units, calories, and water, which is calories or energy units, shelter and education for 1 hour of your life's work a day. Get rid of the minimum wage because you don't know what that should be. Get rid of the welfare because that's a stigma. Everyone has their basic needs met, and what they're doing right now in a certain part of the world, I think it's Sweden, they are giving everybody their basic.
I think it's Finland.
It's Finland. In Finland, they're giving everybody enough money so their basic needs are met. But the trouble with that is that's fine for one country, but we need to do it worldwide. This is Bridges Programming, so you're welcome to do programming with us as long as it's a humanitarian thinking process built in. No hate, please. And then, of course, we have Renew the Earth, which is a nonprofit that you can actually contribute some money to if you choose, but we don't really want you to. That's not our primary goal. Our primary goal is to keep on giving you good programming. without any further ado, we're going to send you over to Bonfire and Dennis Carius, and with the video you're looking at will continually switch over to our studios here in Florida and what's going on out with our stork, our live stork, and our birds and our kitties running around the yard. And you'll be able to see that and the moss swaying in the breeze when you look at the video, and you can see it right now if you're online. When Dennis gets online, he'll say that. Okay, I'm out of here. I'm turning it over to you, Bonfire.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Susan and Jeff, for providing this forum, this platform, this way of the soapbox, really, I guess, for souls such as myself who have a lot to say and really find it hard to find a forum, and in my community especially. I'm in the northeast part of the USA. I am looking out my window across the valley to the mountains of the old Taconic Range, the mountains of Vermont, which are black, blue, kind of indigo, blue-black today. And yeah, we do have some sun coming through, but the pluming jet trails, the solar radiation management, the weaponized sky has been pretty torturing to souls such as I in the last week, maybe always these days really, but some days more blatant than others. However, I decided I would start with something a little more cheery than where I am inclined normally to head, which is right to the pith. Is it? And I'm going to dedicate this program today, this Landslide program today, to my friend Rosalind Peterson for all her generosity of spirit, her research that she has done with such integrity and depth, actually, for many years over concerning many issues. In fact, it was she whom I first spoke to when in 2008 I saw the sky looking plaid and the cross-hatching of the atmospheric program that's going on. So I'm dedicating this program to my friend Rosalind Peterson today. But I thought I might start with the joys of puttering, as I have a chance to do that, or did a little bit this morning once I got all of our cats fed. We are now feeding 7 cats, 2 outside and 5 inside. It's crazy. But when feral cats take over, well, when I let them take over, I guess, more to the point, there are a lot of mouths to feed, and there's also a lot of joy involved in this, which is one reason, given my profound concerns about what's going on atmospherically, one reason why I'm delighted to have all these beautiful little black and white faces looking up at me these days and taking my attention to them, to their innocence and their beauty. I thought I might start with the idea of puttering and whether or not it's going to become an Olympic sport. And if when it does, I think I might be a contender, and maybe you who are listening also recognize in yourself that you have this either potential or well-developed puttering affection, maybe a puttering skill. Not that it's a skill so much, I guess. Just kind of wandering from one thing to another in the course of the morning. Very delicious to have the freedom of time and inspiration to go from watering plants to making a cup of coffee, as I'm now a coffee drinker, to doing the dishes, whatever's there, cleaning off the table, looking at some correspondence, thinking about correspondence maybe that I'm going to write. Yes, I am penning a letter to the COO of Apple, Tim Cook, but I'll get to that later. So thinking about the phrasing of things, making a list of things that I might talk about on Bridges programming here this morning. And I do call my program Landslide. Well, puttering is a joy, and puttering is a way to be quiet and thoughtful and move through time and space in a manner that allows something to present itself to me, perhaps to you if you are a putterer, and take my attention from one thing to another, which is for me a great pleasure as I kind of roll through the things I have to do or feel I have to do, the chores of the morning, joyful chores, and ideas that are a great pleasure to me. And in the midst of that, I thought it might be really kind of a fun thing to tell you what I have on my windowsill over my sink, looking out as I do north over that sink, looking out across that little display of objets to our orchard and then beyond to the wildlife sanctuary. Yes, I live on a wildlife sanctuary, and I'm not sure what kind of a sanctuary it is for the wildlife. I hope that we have not had hunters coming on the 217 acres during this period of deer season, rifle and bow and muzzle loader, which are all considered legal in New York State, which is where I am. But on the windowsill, I have one tall, about 10 inches tall, old glass bottle, beautiful rounded shoulder, kind of a icy blue. And at the same time that we found that, digging around, putting in, taking things out and putting things in when we were renovating around our house, it came out of the ground intact. And also a marble, or what I think was a marble, it could have been inside of another glass medicinal bottle, which sometimes was used to shake up the contents, to mix the contents that were in a bottle, medicinal bottle. This is probably some kind of water, I suppose, because it's a rather tall bottle. But right next to it are two 12-sided, smaller, ice blue glass bottles as well. They're quite beautiful. They're probably not more than 4.5 inches tall. Also probably medicinal at some point, probably in the 1800s. These things come up, and if you are, as I, interested in stories of everything, or at the point of everything, which makes it difficult to, of course, let go of anything. It's an odd kind of, I won't call it hoarding, although I suppose in a way it is. Next to that is another short, deep green-brown bottle, and the upper edge of it looks like it was blown rather than coming out of a, rather than being cast in a form. It's blown into a form, perhaps. This has a very rough lip on it, very misshapen, let me say. And next to that, on my shelf, there is a deer tooth. Yes, deer tooth that came out of a deer skull. I'm a collector, though not intentionally, of deer skulls, and fascinated by the beauty of the structure of the skulls, once, of course, all the hairs off of them. The Wildlife Sanctuary has offered up these over the years. One found in the river, which is along the edge of the sanctuary, and came out a kind of brown color, still wearing its antlers. This tooth comes from a skull that had rattling teeth, and it fell out at one point, and it ended up on the windowsill. It needs to be, I suppose, glued in. Does that make any sense? Sounds like a kind of orthodontic procedure that is probably sounds crazy to most people. But if you have an appreciation of the structure and you want to keep it as much intact as you can, then you might consider the foolish thing, gluing it back in. Next to that is a eucalyptus pod. No, not from around here. We don't have eucalyptus trees. But this one came from California when I was visiting, and I gathered up several. They're apparently not indigenous to California either, but they have found a place, a happy home there, and they're quite beautiful. They remind me of the plain trees we have here, plain, or those here, the name, ones that peel away different colors of green and beige and brown and dark brown, and really lovely, lovely beings to be in the presence of. They do like water. So I came back with a handful of the pods, the little pods of eucalyptus trees that I was getting to know in California, and I would keep them in my pocket, bring them out and take a sniff of that beautiful aroma of eucalyptus. Now the aroma has gone. It's been probably 15 years. So those two are sitting together. I wonder what kind of energetic conversation a deer tooth and a eucalyptus pod might have on my windowsill. I also have a glass with one sprig of what's called curry plant. Even though everyone will quickly tell you, well, curry is a combination of spices and ingredients, it doesn't grow, but it does smell like curry, and it is sitting in a little glass of water, hoping it would begin to sprout some little roots. And in the water with it now is a collection of chickweed, and chickweed is really gone by for this season here. Too cold for it to be growing outside, but it does tend to grow and reseed itself in many of my indoor potted plants. And chickweed is not only a medicine, but it's a wonderful food, and you can chop it up with gratitude, of course. Chop it up on a salad, and it brings not only a really green flavor, but nourishment of a plant that is, well, wild-crafted, sort of, but wild-crafted from potted plants that are stored for the winter as part of the world. There's a common pin, just a single common pin sitting on my windowsill. There is a spool of thread with fuchsia pink thread sitting on my windowsill. There's a small collection of hot peppers that I just harvested. Somebody gave me a little plant. They're not terribly hot, but there they are. I'm looking actually just out my window right now at a bluebird. Oh my gosh, sitting on one of the posts, the old farm post fencing, and it's just posted itself on that post. Beautiful, beautiful, must be a male. Chest is that beautiful rosy color. So outside the window, we do have bluebirds that tend to hang around. Okay, that's my windowsill. So a yellow ceramic pot glazed, commercially made, with a bit of ivy that I brought back from my adventures this autumn with my sister. We went to Sandwich, Massachusetts to sit on the unmarked graveyard of a marked by gravestones of my Quaker ancestors and our Quaker ancestors. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll just bring back a little bit of the ivy that grows on the graveyard. So I put it in soil, and it is slowly prospering. It looks like English ivy to me, and it is prospering in this wonderful bright yellow glazed pot. It has about 5 inches high. And then next to that is another one of those short glass bottles, the old bottles that are found bottled up, or maybe just turn up when you are working in an old gardening in a place that once had an old barn or house on it rather. And this one is full of little bones that I took out of bobcat scat a couple of winters ago. And instead of a cork to close it, I have closed it with a small speckled egg that turned up with a break in it. Beautiful little egg, not more than half an inch long, that kind of closes that glass bottle for me. Those are the beauties of that are surrounding me, and they are the things that bring me pleasure. I suppose in all of that there's a kind of puttering too, and I just hope that in your life you have time to be introspective and look around at the world. Hopefully you have some natural beauty not too far from you, and that it is nourishing and communicating as well with you in this very crazy world. Speaking of which, here's my holiday ditty from probably 1976, and in its own way, it is still a current, perennial, I like to say, poem or ditty, my Christmas poem, you could say. Here goes. In this crazy world where food is measured in cups and munitions are measured in megatons, wouldn't we all be better served if our wars were fought with cookie guns? Well, I'm not promoting sugar-laden cookies, really, but just to make that transition from ballistics that are profoundly injurious and crazy to something that would be delightful and hopefully bringing to light at the same time that little poem, I hope, brings an idea, or, well, actually not playing out very well on the planet at this point. I am a little bit homesick, I find, and not so much for a place on the planet as for some place from whence I might have come off the planet, somewhere far away where we are not violent and we don't understand how this violence, we don't really know what to do with it. Brings me to an idea that's turning into a short story for me, but it's really based on what happened in Paris. You know what I mean. Now, of course, this climate change conference that went on in Paris, and I would like to get to that in a moment, but this is the concussions that we feel from what the Islamic State did in Paris. I guess it was on Friday the 13th, which probably is not much meaningful to the perpetrators, but of course meaningful superstitiously, perhaps to those of us in our culture. I was hearing a report from the National Public Radio announcer about cafe. He was there in Paris after the event, and he was counting the pock marks in the wall of the cafe where many people died, and he was feeling, of course, the intensity of the impact, the concussion, the impact, the disruption on that wall of that cafe where people were probably having lovely conversations and probably having a cup of coffee or, one of their teas that they have, their herb tea, cup of coffee. Maybe they were having a little bit of baguette. Who knows when it was happening or what the delight they were enjoying in terms of that conversation, and maybe doing email or something of that sort as well. But he counted the number of pockmarks in the wall from the spray of the bullets that came into that cafe, and he did it with such emotion breakdown, but you could just feel in his voice the emotion of being in that place where this violence took place. And it occurred to me it would be so much the better, from my point of view, if in that moment he could add a comment about the pock-marked walls of a cafe in Baghdad, perhaps, or some other city in Iraq, or a cafe in Pakistan, or Afghanistan, or any of the other places where we are pocking walls. We're making the same kind of spray of bullets. Not only in the U.S., I mean, this is a global catastrophe of violence. But if we are only seeing if we're only feeling the concussion of that which is familiar to us because it's Paris, because there's that relationship maybe we have with France or with Paris, Paris being the place for lovers, supposedly. And I think it could be. It's a pretty lovely city for what my experience has been there. But how can we not include marked walls that we have created with a power spray of bullets in other parts of the world. So I want to bring that in to, for me, make a better shape of the disaster that we are all part of. I know we're coming up to a half hour, the first half hour of Landslide, so I do want to take a moment to recommend that you find out more about the HREM, Human Renewable Energy Measure.com, and bridgesprogramming.com, and renewtheearth.org. This is World Calling Day on Bridges Programming. And my name is Bonfire. I call this program Landslide. And so I want to recognize all of those in passing. But I wanted to continue with my story of concussion. I'm an artist, or at least I play one on TV. And I have been doing some pieces of work with stones from the river that flows past the sanctuary, and embellishing them, hoping I can add to their story with silver applications, silver applications. They're pendants, and they were recently in an exhibit at a large art center here, crossing the border into, I was going to say into France, and actually that's the truth of my story here. So it's really physically crossing the border into Vermont. There is a new curator of the programs, of the shows at this gallery, and he's French. He is young, maybe in his early mid-30s. He has lots of ideas about how to improve the showing of the work at this big art center, and I've gotten to know him a little bit. But after I was trying to keep in touch with for some of the things I would like to include there, and I couldn't seem to get him to call me back. I couldn't get him to respond to email, and it turned out that he had gone home to France for what were our Thanksgiving holidays, not appropriate, but that he told me later in conversation that he had lost someone in Paris, maybe more than one person in Paris, when the bullet and the other violent acts took place. He said, and I can't talk about it. And I said, well, no, I don't. I'm not asking you to, but I just want to express my empathy for your loss. That was by phone. When he was back at the art center a week or so later, and I went over to talk about some of my ideas, I could see that he was still extremely shaken, and why wouldn't he be? And he said, forgive me, I'm not doing well answering phone calls, or I'm not doing well. He said, I just am not well. He said, and then he touched his chest, he said, and I said, your heart is broken? He said, yes, my heart is broken. And here he is in a country that's not his native country, trying to find his way in a new position, and really this lovely soul, I'm coming to find out, being in his presence and feeling how he has exploded because his life has exploded, and that his heart is broken. Being in the presence of that, I realized I can, at this distance, way across the ocean from France, in his presence, I can feel the concussion of what happened in Paris. Often I say I can feel the concussion of what we are doing, what is happening not only in our hands, but what is happening in other parts of the world. And when there is an explosion, and I think I'm by proxy responsible for that, I feel that concussion. But when I left the art center that day, I was not visibly, who knows, I was visibly shaken. I was physically shaken. And I found it took me actually many hours of just being in the presence of that vibration, that intensity of violence and that intensity of loss. This is the way, I'm sure, the violence just reverberates around our planet, this beautiful planet Earth. Beautiful planet Earth. So that's my story, concussion. And feeling it, I know concussion is now being much more applied to brain injuries caused by football. And I'm thinking, people, stop it. I mean, you can see that these concussions are causing terrible injury to these men, or at least probably women too, if there's a female football league, and there probably is. I wouldn't be surprised, because we do like to have that kind of intense body contact, I guess. Maybe that's what war is all about, too, when it becomes body on body. I don't know. But I did make a copy of the article from the New York Times last week, a couple weeks ago maybe now. It was actually the 4th of December. Pentagon opens all combat roles to women. No exceptions. Got a photo of these smiling faces of young women in uniform. Very happy, actually. So I made a copy of it to send it to my grandson, who is almost 13, because I wanted him to maybe consider that, and of course this is the kind of conversation he and I would have anyway. Well, doesn't it turn out that they really have to improve their quota if you're not going to be signing people into the military, and you are fighting wars all over the planet, not to mention the special operation forces operations all over the planet. Then you really do need to find some way to bring more bodies and more young beings who are seeking heroics, who are seeking in their craziness some perverse idea of patriotism. So I included this little poem for my grandson, and right underneath the article that I sent, in reference to the Pentagon, who says now we have opened all combat roles to women, no exceptions. So I wrote to him, do they really care? Not one iota. Just gotta fill that martial quota. Do they care? Not one iota. Just got to fill that martial quota. And I think that's really much more what it is. So is this the way that the power of women is felt in the world? It's not the dream that I had. I doubt it's the dream that Susan B. Anthony or the other women who were working so vigorously for civil rights in the late 1800s, the early 1900s. I don't think that this was going to be the ballooning rose of prosperity for women, that they would be taken as children, essentially, and used. Nobody says cannon fodder anymore, because, of course, now we're droning everyone to death, or other such, wow, high technology of death. Wow, sounds good, doesn't it? So, from my point of view, this is a very, very sad moment that these shining, smiling faces have been seduced or brainwashed, and I don't mean just in this country, wherever young human beings are taken in. I mean taken in, not only becoming members of the military, but also taken in by an idea that is martial and ultimately, ultimately destructive to them, not only to them, but to all those who will be experiencing the other end of their rifle or whatever machinery of war they'll be using. Could just be propaganda, all I know. I wonder, hey Dennis, do you have a thought on that?
Oh, Dennis has a lot of thoughts on what you're saying, Bonnie, which is very interesting.
Thank you.
This has happening over there, when you mentioned about creating wars all over the planet, if they didn't have anything under the ground in those countries, like fossil fuel, like oil, for example, would we be sending our troops over there or taking out their democratically elected leaders, like in Iran? We put the Shah of Iran in there, and then we got a good price on oil. When the Shah of Iran was supposed to be dying, he didn't stay there. He didn't really have friends. He was a dictator. He came over here. He died in this country. So wouldn't you think that, like Saudi Arabia, number 6 on the list of dictatorships in the whole world, they get a lot of weapons from countries like us. We get a really good price on oil from those countries. We're told on 9/11, 2001, out of 19 hijacked 15 from what country? Right, yeah, Saudi Arabia. So I mean, could we be provoking any of what we're calling terrorism in this world?
I would even respond to that, thank you, by adding that I always must include us as terrorists ourselves. Recently, a friend of mine was listening to National Public Radio, and he came away with a quotation about the confrontations between the Christian and Muslim militias. And he and I had a good laugh over that in a sad sort of way. Wait, Christians, Muslims, these two ostensibly non-violent religions have militias? Oh, something's a little screwy there.
Actually,
Yeah.
I'm with a group which is called the Interfaith Alliance. And as I get older, I'm not orthodox any faith. My favorite faith is all the faiths that can come together and say we all agree we should love thy neighbor, thou shalt not kill. And I agree. Muslims really do say the same thing. We're all sons and daughters of Abraham. And what's happening, I think, is really, it's like when we had a civil war in this country. It's like we love freedom, we love democracy, and we would not be happy if our president was taken out and replaced by a dictator so that some other country could get a good price on what's under the ground over there. So over there in the Middle East, it could be that when we say ISIS or Shiites or Sunnis or terrorists, it could be that they just would like to go back to the freedom and the democracy that they had in the past, instead of having dictators put in over there so that we can get a good price on that tool.
This is not to exclude, though, I would add, for me anyway, that wherever there are human beings, there is potential greediness and fear and self-loathing and loathing of others. It's not only a quality of our nationality. It seems to be a human, unfortunately, a human problem.
Okay, I'd like to interject here because, first of all, when we're talking about those people over there and dictatorships and fear and greed and terrorism, the way our system is set up, if we can just, and I bring this out a lot now because if you look at this planet, it's as though it was you had a big house or a big conference center in your sanctuary, or we live in a big 200 room home with lots of hallways, and then we've labeled each room a different country. We're all in the same house, and what's happening is when you say the word greed, our system in that house is saying we have to take what's in the other room at all costs. So we pollute that room, we shoot the people in that room. But when we shoot the people in our own house or in our room, we are actually tearing apart our own home, our own house. And this planet is, in fact, one separate house, one separate creation. So I look at that instead of a planet, because it's sort of hard to see that. I'm looking at it as a house. And I don't believe, I think we haven't evolved enough. We're a pretty stupid species that we haven't evolved enough to say all humanity we all agree that we all need our basic needs met, our food, our shelter, and our education, and it should be because of the technology. And the only thing good about technology is that it should give us the ability not to work as hard and have the free time that you mentioned on the beginning of the program to tinker or to putter around. Most people, unfortunately, in this country and other countries around the world, don't have the time, the ability, the free time. If you want to say blessed, you can use that word. I would say nature gave us a very small part of this population, the people like you and I, who are very lucky to have the time to putter and have the free time to do programs like this. And then there are the very poor people in parts of the world who also have free time, because there's no point in doing it. They can't get a job, but they're getting their basic needs met somehow, and they're playing dominoes and music, and they're puttering too. So it's interesting to see what's going on. But but we're still killing people all over the world, and that's the bullets that you're talking about, not just in France, but in Africa, and the slaughtering of people all over the world, but that's due to our economic system, and that's what this program's all about, the HRM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure. And if we come to an understanding that you talked about your grandchild earlier. I play a game with my granddaughter as we drive along, and I come up with absurdities, like I say, look at that red cow, and I'm pointing to a barn. She says, no, Grandpa, that's a red barn, and this is amazing. And I said to her, how do you know it's a red barn? And I say that to a lot of people now. And she said to me, which I think was absolutely, what's the word? Astonishing. And she said, because we all agree it's a red barn. In other words, we have to come to an agreement, a start point, a measurement that says that all of humanity agrees. It may not be the same word in different colors, white, blanca in Spanish, or whatever other languages, but we all know what the color means, the white. We've agreed upon it. Now we have a subjective point in shades, but we can agree on a basic. And all humanity does believe that all humanity has to have their basic needs met. But
I think, though, Jeff, that's really a beautiful story. I've heard that one before, but I think it's expanding a little bit. It's really beautiful. I feel, though, that where I might differ with you on this, in fact, I think I do differ with you on this, is that there is some echelon, there's some stratum of, I don't even know if I want to call it humanity, of a mindset or an idea that has nothing to do with what you dream of as the ideal. And they don't want that. I really, the longer I'm here, the longer I say, the more I think, not everybody wants what you say everybody wants.
When you say they, there's a small portion, and Dennis calls it the 1%ers.
No, I'm not calling it 1%. I'm talking like about the forces that are invisible, that are really in power globally. That, while they have us arguing over.
Who is they?
Arguing about.
They still need food, shelter.
Who is they?
By our culture, our media have us arguing about Donald Trump, while the CIA is masterminding all kinds of things all over the planet and within our own country, the NSA. I mean, all of these, they don't care about humanitarian issues.
I'm going to
really in control here. I don't know how we're going to muster the interests of humanity when humanity is enslaved.
Okay, well, if you want to, I can answer that question.
Go ahead.
We have my first question to you will be a question which I don't want you to answer. The question is, if you are right, and I think you are, What are we going to do about it? Number one, I don't want. I don't.
One of the things I'm doing is my radio program.
Okay.
So I would like to continue with my radio program.
Okay. The second thing is, if we first have to figure out how are they having us enslaved? Well, the small percentage of the world population who's controlling our media and controlling the insanity about the political situation is all controlled by money. So
that is why I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to spew or speak freely all the things that are on my mind, because I think they are, well, I hope anyway, they're intended to counter what people might get on, well, any other form of media practically.
Right. So I'm suggesting that we may, and I'm not saying we do, I'm suggesting that we stumble across a measurement just like gravity. Gravity's been here forever. It was an obvious thing. And all of a sudden, an apple fell on this guy's head, and he named it gravity, and he was able to measure it. I'm saying to you, obviously, all human beings must have their basic needs met.
Okay, we know that, but can I get back to my program?
Okay, no, I just wanted to interject that. Go ahead.
Yes, you may, and you may, even at the end, I hope you'll talk about it a little bit more as we come to the end of my time, but I really have so many things that I'd like to talk about today that may reflect on that, but give me a chance, okay?
Certainly, go right ahead.
All right, so thinking about the holiday that is upon us. Actually, you know what? I'm going to preempt that by saying one of the things I thought about a lot after the last time I was offering Landslide on Bridges programming was how Susan, whom I love, and I really wanted to have an argument with her. And I realized it was partly because but I was thinking, now I realize this is true for me, and it may or not be true for anybody else listening or for my friends Susan and Jeff, but I find that I keep returning to the safe place that is my conclusion. And what I would really like, the prosperity I would like to offer by way of my time on the air, and by way of my little program called Landslide, is to break out of those safe places, those conclusions that we return to again and again. And how do we begin to speak from a place which is free of conclusions? For instance, if I come with my attitude about martial mentality, which I return to, that's one of my conclusions, is that this planet is ruled by martial thinking. It is a planet more influenced by Mars than by Venus. I come back to that over and over again. It is, in an odd sense, a refuge. It is, in an odd sense, a safe place for me. I have a conclusion. And I would suggest that the HREM is a safe place. It is a conclusion from which all other things can spill. But what I would like us to consider for the little bit of time that I'm on with you is, what if we let go of our safe place conclusion, the thing that we think would save it all, would change it all? That's where I would invite our thinking to go, if it can get there. I'm not even sure mine can, but I just put it out as a proposal. What if we don't return to the HREM? What if we don't return to the martial mentality and we find a new landscape to wander through, together or apart? Now, I'm not asking anybody to respond to that for the moment, but it just seems like a philosophical breakthrough for me, because I see how I am downtrodden by my conclusions. And conclusions are not necessarily the truth. Now, I can imagine that some people might want to respond to that, but may I please continue? I have a few more minutes before we take our hour break. And I know I will return to my own conclusions because I had an embedded tick last night, December 15th. And I'm pretty freaked out about it, sort of a quiet panic. And, I have my conclusions about biological warfare, but I want to set myself free from that and see what kind of creativity of thought I can have. I'm not saying I can do it, but I want to do it, and I would like to take my friends with me on that expedition. So I've been thinking about the holidays, and it seemed to me that at the climate change conference, which to me is just more palaver, honestly, and will go nowhere, but I see that people around me who are kind of mostly the committed Democrat friends of mine, and I'm like, oh, please. They say, isn't it great what happened? And I'm thinking, probably not, but if you've got enthusiasm for that, go for it. But I wish you would also be able to hear when I'm talking about solar radiation management, when I have ideas about how the military programs in geoengineering actually have the biggest footprint on the planet, and these are not part of any conversation, of any discussion. But even on a tinier scale, as I drive around this time of year, and I go out a little bit, not so much as I used to, I can see how people have endeavored to light up the world by putting icicle trim along their houses, and these are light up icicle trim. It was almost like a curtain of white lights around the edge of the lower edge of their roof, or all those inflated beings, Rudolph and the snowman, and all of those that are blown up on people's yards or on their front porches, and which of course take energy. Why didn't anybody, I mean, this is why I wish I could have been allowed to participate, not only the thing about the military contribution to climate change and the global warming, if that indeed is happening. And I'm just going to say, I don't care if it's happening. We are destroying our atmosphere collectively. However, why did somebody at that conference say, hey, you know what? Maybe this holiday season we could all join in by not lighting up the world?
I agree.
You might
I
say,
agree.
well, that's not very much energy, really.
I agree. That's a good idea.
Well, thank you. I bet it didn't turn up at the conference, though.
You'd be affecting the economy if you did that.
I'm afraid that it would, but not the economy you and I are dreaming of.
It's all the economies. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep on going.
And then my other point, coming up to the hourly break, my other point in regard to the holidays is all of the trees that are sacrificed. I mean, it's a slaughter. And I would love it if other human beings would consider having a tree, as I have a Norfolk pine in my living room, in a pot. And I know that's a form of slavery too, putting a plant that cannot survive outdoors in this environment here in the Northeast in a pot and subjecting it to some sort of slavery so I can have it in my house. I don't think that's a good idea, but it's been in my life for 30 years, and every year I decorate it. Because just about at the beginning of November, this tree says to me, ahem, it clears this little tree-like throat, stalky throat, and it says to me, it's time. And it was only about 3 years ago that I surrendered to getting these little fairy lights, speaking of using lights, and I wrapped this little string of fairy lights, kind of a, magical blue color around it, and plug it into the wall. And I unplug it, of course. It's only on a few hours, but every day, maybe in the morning when it's dark when I get up, and then in the evening when we set the fire in the wood stove, just to celebrate in our own way, with a living tree. So right after the slaughter of the turkeys and now the deer, we have the slaughter of the trees. We're harvesting, and we are celebrating a tree, the symbol, pine tree, the symbol of eternal life by killing it. Oh, please. Hello, wake up. Anybody getting this besides me? Apparently not. Sales are good. And then, of course, you see their sad bodies, either in body bags out on the curb after the use is complete. This is how I see human beings behaving so mindlessly in this world about a beautiful living being, a pine tree. So
And,
we
and
close enough that we need to take a break here.
I would say that your wonderful little Norfolk pine, which I met, is one of the happiest looking trapped pines I've ever seen.
Well,
Thank you.
but you've set up a zoo. You've set up a safe house for that
tree.
pine.
Right.
You can also call it a zoo, and we all, you and I both, Susan and I feed our feral cats, but we don't bring them in. We leave them outside because we have all winter here is very, very mild for especially a furried animal. And the same cats that are feral last year are the same cats that are back now. So we create zoos for our pets, and then we do that with people, and that's what's happening all over the world. We are creating zoos or slavery for people. But I think that your cats appreciate the fact that you are feeding them and giving them a place that's warm. But I don't think people really want to be enslaved and be forced to be taken care of a certain way. And that's what's happening all over the world. And
well, and to add to that, I do not think that most people know that they are enslaved. I don't think most of us know that our enslavement causes enslavement by proxy.
right, and that's also because we're enslaved by economic terrorism. When someone realizes that they don't have any choice, they go crazy in a way, and they start shooting innocent people, like you see in.
Well, some people do.
Some people do, not everyone.
Yeah, I don't even know who's innocent. I don't really know what the innocent people idea is anymore. Is anybody really innocent?
Well, that's a religious thing you came up with, where my religious friends say we're all born evil, and I don't. I don't believe that. I believe that we're born.
Why are we all born innocent?
Well, we're not born. As far as I'm concerned, we're born. If you want to call it innocent, that's fine. But we learn to be devious, and we learn to be have wants fulfilled that are, in my opinion, are only necessary because of our belief systems, and that's what you alluded to earlier in the program.
Yes, thank you. And also this idea of our conclusions that become comfortable, almost fortification, oddly. And I thank you, Jeff, for stepping away from that and bringing new language to our conversation. I really appreciate it, because I see that you are doing that today. Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna.
If you want to do something at 11?
If you want to do this is brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measure, and you can see that on your screen. Renewtheearth.org. Renewtheearth.org. Renewable Energy, which is HREM.org, and then we have Bridges Programming, which is what we put the money into to keep this thing functioning, and the impedance, of course, is the HREM.org. An idea that we think that if we bring the measurement, an agreed upon thing that all we agree upon, and measure it and make sure every human being in the world follows this belief system, that we all think that we have to have food and shelter and education. Those are things I think that are basic.
Could I interject something?
Go ahead.
Just so that I will get on a schedule myself. I'm starting to write an outline, well, actually fuller than an outline. It's a what would you call it, dry run or whatever, of what a short book about the Human Renewable Energy Measure would turn out to be. And so I'm going to slowly post this, and today I'll make the first posting on the hrem.org site. I'm going to send it to our technician and ask him to post it. That way I'll do a regular posting, hopefully once a month. And so this will hopefully, with all the programming that we've done, over the past almost 3 years now, we've been evolving we hope, better ways to come at the concept and to talk about it. We repeat some of the old ways, but we're always adding new concepts of other people who have talked about
And to simplify it.
about using an energy unit to describe human basic needs. And we're not, of course, the first ones to ever consider this. There have been many people who have toyed with these ideas, and we're just trying to keep them alive. And so I'm just saying that there will be some activity on that site this week.
And
Excellent. And you know, Susan, why don't you add too that you have your Dear Earthling on Renew the Earth. Talk about that for a minute.
Oh, yes, the Earthlings letters. I have a plan to have 12 of them in the end. I've done 8. They're all posted on renewtheearth.org, and they're letters to children about this planet they live on, and different kinds of activities they can do to help themselves feel that they are indeed Earthlings and belong here and are a part of the whole wonderful mechanism that makes life possible on this planet. So yeah, there are, and they have little illustrations, and I make them on my cell phone, and again send them to our wonderful technician Levi, and he makes this posting that would take me forever to figure out. So thank you, Levi.
On the book that Susan's writing, we hope that more people add to that and give questions about it. That's the
on
purpose.
The HREM site.
The HREM site.
As I'm posting, these things, it would be wonderful if people would interact and
look at it
and contribute their comments.
Yes, that's the.
And then I will somehow figure out how to incorporate.
Where every human being is their own expert, and you don't need a PhD to be the expert.
No, right.
You as as part of our speech.
We learn the most important things from people who often have not had formal education. We learn a lot of good things from people with formal education, but we learn a lot of really profound things from people who don't have the luxury or the economic status to.
Or the enslavement.
All the enslavement. But anyway, I'm going to get off the visual, get back to your program, and we're going to be putting, when we get back to your program, I know you're describing upstate New York, but this is a bridge across the world call, and we are 2,000 miles from you, and you are looking, when you look at our video, you're looking at a Florida property, or a Florida, I shouldn't call it property. And what we're going to do is, and you're seeing the moss on the trees blow in the wind. And I don't like to call it property.
Right now, they just see the moss growing on your chin.
So we're going to get back to Bonfire. And Dennis, if you have anything to interject before we go back.
No. As a matter of fact, Dennis can suggest movement on the screen, so everything's fine.
Okay, very fine. We'll see you. We're listening to you, so keep on going.
All right, thank you so much. Just staying for a moment with the theme of holidays and the craziness, the crescendo, one could say, coming up to the exchange of gifts for people who do that. I kind of put my foot down this year with those who are closest to me in terms of family and said, you know what, rather than contribute to the glut, because some of them really like this holiday glut, I've gone into their living room after the opening of their gifts on Christmas morning, and it really makes me almost vomit because of the flotsam, which is what it feels like to me. It's like an ocean of debris and objects which, as far as I'm concerned, soon will be debris themselves. Too much material stuff and too much, pleasure, perhaps. I mean, I know opening gifts is fun, and I know receiving gifts is fun, and giving gifts is fun. However, the glut is what was troubling me. So I have kind of put my foot down and said, okay, this holiday, just for my grandchildren and daughter and her husband, And in our household, when we get together, as we will at some point around the big day of Christmas Day in my culture and my religion, I guess, which I don't really have a religion, but I'm pretty spiritual. We're going to only, if I can, if this actually comes true, but I am asking that we only make a gift. And it could just be a little song or a poem or a drawing or something of that sort. And I have asked this. So I'm hoping it will play out that way. And my daughter said, well, okay, it's not going to go over very well, but all right. I said, yeah, let's do it. And for me, she is one of the worst victims of the gluttony, of the glut. So I'm hoping it will play out. She's also extremely thoughtful, and I think she'll come up with something delicious. But here's what I came up with, and I'm having really such fun with it. I decided that I'm going to sit quietly, tune in, if you know what I mean, in a meditative way to each of the people whom I would like to give this gift to and see what comes into my mind's eye and then do a drawing painting of it. And thus far I have done 3. And the littlest child, who's only a little over a year old, it came very clear to me the colors that would be, that would announce her for me in that moment. Now, this is not that this would be a portrait, calling it a portrait, that would even be still relevant on December 23rd, maybe, when she might get to see it, or her mom gets to see it. But it is in that moment that I'm tuning in to another human being, and I'm allowing, I'm hoping that whatever percolates up or bubbles up will be an appropriate or an accurate description in that moment of that person. And this is, of course, delightful for me, and hopefully it will be for the recipient. I'm hoping that they're only about, 4 inches by 5 inches. They're not very big. I had this fantasy of putting them all together, having them framed and matted in such a way that they're all there, and then they would have something they could put on their wall. And I thought, no, I cannot make that determination for other people. That these drawings of these little paintings that I would do, which are more like landscapes really, than any identifiable portraiture, I can't. Why would I assume that anyone would want to have this matted and put on their wall? And that's a presumption that gets in my own way as well as theirs, potentially. So I'm just going to do the little paintings, and I want to offer that idea to whoever might be listening to think about something that does not involve an investment or fighting over a widescreen TV, Black Friday, or any of the other rather obscene gestures of so-called humanity celebrating the season of giving, the season of love, the season of light. All right. So that was my other thought. What I'd like to do is, because I kind of promised that I would, and not that anyone besides me actually probably cares very much about this, but I think I'm going to offer a little bit of a guided visualization, as I used to years and years ago, and as I did the last time, I was graciously a guest of Gracious Bridges Programming. So I'm going to do that right now, and I hope you'll join me. And the way to join me, if you feel so inclined, is if you are seated, to put your feet flat on the floor so that the energy roots come out through the bottom of your feet, if you can imagine such a thing, or traveling through the floor and down into the earth. And we're grounding in that way. And if you're not sitting, you're lying down, you just have to imagine this in a way that is effective for you. But if you are sitting, then in that chair, to be aware of your hips on the chair, maybe wiggle them around a little bit, just to say, hello, hips. I'm seeing that I have hips. I see that. Okay, that's a good thing. I've got feet on the ground, grounding with the earth, deep down into this beautiful blue marble, as some call it, only known from a distance, of course. And then allow your spine to lengthen, lengthen. Remembering there's a beautiful kind of sine curve to the spine. So we're not trying to make it rigid, straight, but to lift out of our hips. And to imagine that as we lift out and we lengthen our spine, we are also bringing space between the vertebrae of the spine. And even bringing space and breath between the discs between the vertebrae of the spine, all the way up into the neck and into the where the neck and the skull get to know each other. So the back of the skull, occiput, the occipital lobe of the brain. Oh, yeah. Well, in Reiki, that part of the brain is considered to be the lizard brain, the ancient brain, the brain that seeks to be warm and have food and I guess sex actually for procreation, but for some of us who are a bit beyond that, just to have creature comfort and affection and to be loved, and at least to be held in regard sufficient that we will receive nourishment. So being aware of your breath, if you will join me in bringing your breath into your body with your awareness. So as you bring our breath into our lungs and then deeper as you do this at your own pace into the solar plexus, which is the site of the physical stomach, and then below our navel into the depths of our bellies. And that's where we're heading with our breath. But to begin with, bringing your breath in through your nose, if it is comfortable and easy to breathe in through your nose. And then breathing out through your open mouth, releasing all of those things that no longer serve you and are ready to be released. Drawing in breath, imagining that you are bringing in nourishment, whatever might be in the air that might be a contaminant, we just don't bring that in. We filter that out, drawing in the nourishment of breath, ancient, primal nourishment, allowing it to come into your heart, into your lungs, and then breathe out from your heart and your lungs all of those things that no longer serve us and are ready to be released. And for those of you who sense this in a physical way, you might imagine you have a companion candle, and if you think there's anything injurious that you're breathing out, you can go into that candle and seek its own transformation. Again, bringing your breath into your body, bringing it in at your own pace, guided by my voice, but finding your own pace. Breath in with awareness, breath out with awareness. Primal force of breath, primal nourishment. And releasing. Time when you next bring in your breath, bring it in more deeply, not only into your heart, into your lungs, but bring it all the way to your navel, assuming we all have a navel. And then breathe out from that place all the things that no longer serve you and are ready to be released. Letting go, letting go. Surrendering to the benefit and the beauty of breath. Again, at your own pace, bringing your breath into your body more deeply, yet all the way to your belly. About 2 inches below your navel is the site of the Dan Yin, the hara of martial arts. But this is a Venusian, let's say, this is a love-based exercise, conscious breathing. And breathing out from this deep place in your body, all of those things that no longer serve you and are ready to be released. We aren't yanking or pulling or tearing at anything. We're just letting that which is ready to leave our bodies, our being, to be breathed out. Breath in at your own pace. Again, all the way deep to your belly. That place of personal power, which is not power over others, except perhaps as we might delight others or make them laugh, perhaps. And then exhaling, moving all of those things that are ready to be released, that are obstacles to us fully engaging with who we are fundamentally and thoroughly on this amazing planet Earth, we call it. Even if it's not really our home, and if it's hard to ship post, still it is so beautiful, and there's so much pleasure and presence to be derived from all the beings. Breath again all the way to your belly, and then breathing out through your root chakra, and down your legs, out your toes, out your feet. So we're really filling our whole body with this cleansing, nourishing breath. And it's a kind of breakfast or brunch, I guess, a little later in the morning. Here where I am on the planet, and then breathing out. Filling your whole body, breathing out through the bottoms of your feet. Imagine your breath also breathe out across your shoulders, down your arms, out your hands. As our bodies open with the receiving of this breath, this nourishment, all that space where we've had ache and pain, injuries, chronic or new, they're ready today to be breathed out. Let's imagine they can climb aboard our breath and leave us into the candle's flame if you seek that for transformation, so that we don't bring injury to those around us. Thank you to fire for that generous gift of transformation. And deep into your body, breathing deeply. This time as you exhale, imagine, if you will, that your breath opens your throat. So all of those things, all of that space there where ideas get stuck, things we want to say, things we need to say, just let that whole corridor for ideas and emotions be opened by way of your breath, if that feels safe. Then bring breath again. This time, bring it into our mind. Let's imagine that the mind is really throughout the whole body, probably not just located in the skull, but let's just imagine that we can bring breath to our mind, to our physical brain, and that the sutures of our cranium can just flex a little bit. So we've got more room, more space for ideas, and that those who tell us only 10 or 5% of our brains are ever used, let us say to them, perhaps only 5 or 10% of your brain is being used. But not us conscious breathers. We are opening up entirely the interior of our minds to be clear, hopefully, thinking, imagining, inventing, finding joyful ways to be here on this planet and to turn it from its desolation and the suffering to joy, keeping our minds wide open, exhaling at your own pace, of course, through your open third eye that's in the middle of your forehead, just between your eyes, but above them. Imagine the third eye, that door of perception, that window of perception, wide open it wide with our breath. And feeling, maybe we can take a deeper breath than we've been able to earlier today, or maybe even for weeks, who knows? Feeling your whole body benefiting from the relaxation of conscious breathing. I used to think of as a revolutionary act, and indeed it would be if I practice this on a regular basis. Now, coming slowly to the conclusion of this breathing exercise, this guided visualization, if you would settle back into your body, if you've gone adrift, and why wouldn't you? You're wide open. Just so I know I'm leaving you safely back in your body. Me too. Coming in through your crown, the top of your head if you've been traveling out in space. Settling in, feeling your hips, feeling your feet on the floor, feeling the energy of your hands. They might even be warmed and buzzing by way of this exercise. Stimulating the movement of ki or chi, energy throughout our whole body. Another kind of energy measure, one could say, in this case, one that easily travels outside of our bodies into our energy fields and can expand with a sense of love and joy all around us today. Me too. Well, we're coming to soon to be in the last half hour of Landslide today, and I have many other things I want to share with you, of course. It's hard for me not to travel, of course, as is my safe place of conclusion to the injuries that I feel are being caused by martial thinking, by not whole thinking of WHOLE, whole thinking. More the kind that seems to be happening, mostly emanating from fear of not having enough or fear of being injured. I really sense that profoundly on the earth. It feels to me, several years ago, I was saying to my friends who do shamanic or healing or energy work in this world, for lack of another term, that we would all say, I would ask them, do you feel like there's something rolling across the land? Where I live, on this wildlife sanctuary, it is wide open, and lots of beautiful woods and so on, but there's a sense of openness, which is one reason why the programs going on in the sky, the engineering and so on, very troubling to those of us who enjoy the beautiful sky. It's different. Do you have a feeling like something is rolling across the land now, as though there's something coming in, and it's very disquieting, very scary, really, unless one has ways to be in the presence of scary and be with it, and maybe sit with it as though we were hospice volunteers. Very often I feel like a hospice volunteer for planet Earth. And sometimes people would say, no, I'm not feeling that. Sometimes people would say, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. You can almost see the waves of it moving around across the landscape and moving around the earth. Now, for me, these are ever more present. The concussion I was speaking about earlier that I can feel in my own body just by standing next to someone who has lost someone in a war zone. I can be anywhere on the planet, can't it, these days? I can feel that. And what do we do with that? How do we respond to that in our daily lives so that we are not? I don't want to be dictated to by fear. I don't want to be mind controlled by those who would have me quiver and obey. I don't want to obey. I want to obey the spirits of delight. And I would invite you to join me in that. It's not a religion, not to worry. I also wanted to return to the conference in Paris, and my friends in France who have been working on issues of geoengineering, much further things have moved along in France and Belgium and Greece, Germany, all the countries of Europe that have the awareness and seem to have governments that are more able generally to hear our concerns about geoengineering. For me, the hazing of the sky being one of the ones that is most terrifying, actually, for an air breather, as I am, and for all the other air breathers whom I love. They came up with a poster, and this poster was going to be very present as they would be demonstrating or making their thoughts known about climate change within the perimeters of the building where the conference was taking place on climate change. That has to do with the part that, here I go again, back to my conclusion, but please bear with me. I only get a couple of hours a month here. That climatic weapons and geoengineering are the real cause of climate crisis or of climate change. This poster that I could send to anyone if they want a copy of it, it's in French, of course, but it's also in English, so I have been sending it around by email when I go to the library and do my email. Anybody would like a copy of it. It says climatic weapons and geoengineering are the real cause of climate crisis. And I'm not going to say they are the real cause, but I will say they are a huge contributing cause. And that huge contributing cause is never on the table. And there is discussion about the impacts of our various footprints. Let's talk about the footprint of a tank or of a military boot. It's got to be a cartoon I could do about that. It's not in the discussion. Let's bring it into the discussion. How can we keep turning the responsibility to those of us who are, in a sense, more or less enslaved by the economic system, by, I bow to you, Jeff, by the military system? My own conclusion, my own greatest interest is the martial mind, the martial law that's in effect all over this planet, where people proclaim they're free. So let's get that on the table. Let's talk about that. I just sent an email, including the poster, to my regional NPR station, National Public Radio station, asking that they, complimenting them first, saying you're doing a great job discussing the climate change conference, but I don't really think they are. I'm just bowing to them before I say, could you please add this component, which is not really ever heard about, and I'm going to send it out more broadly elsewhere. If anybody would like to join me in this gentle, I hope, barrage of the media, and in whatever ways would bring the point home most clearly, they might send me an email, send it to Bonfire, BONNE_FIRE @yahoo.com, and in the subject line, if you would, climate change, and then I'll know that that's one of the emails I want to open and read. And I will send you not only the text of my letter to my local NPR station, regional really, NPR station, also a copy of the poster. And if you feel so moved, you could send it out more broadly than I'm able to, wherever you might be in the world. And I need to say thank you to my colleagues, I will call them, my investigative reporting, my journalist friends in France, who had the intelligence and wherewithal once again to bring to the attention, or try to bring to the attention, if not to the powers that be, so quote unquote, then to their own neighbors and friends, that this is part of what's happening. It is unseen by most, and it is having a critical effect on our beautiful, beautiful planet, which is so rich with opportunities for joy and beauty and gustatory pleasures and camaraderie with friends. Oh, we could be doing all of that instead of trying to kill each other. Well, this will seem silly, probably on the heels of that. But actually, I should ask you, Dennis, would you like to respond to what I was just saying? You have another thought on that?
I would like to even go even deeper into that, going back to what you were talking about when we talked about Paris, France, because are you surprised that it was just like 2 or 3 days before the whole world was meeting there, including our President Barack Obama, meeting in Paris, France, to talk about climate change? There is a connection between that and that violence that occurred in Paris.
Well, interesting question. Actually, what occurred to me was, too bad, I mean, from their point of view, not from mine, too bad they didn't wait till it had come in. I mean, it would have been much more beautifully disruptive if that were part of their purpose, to actually wait till the conference began. I feel like it's possible that the Islamic State is not tuned in very much to these issues of climate change. Certainly that group was not invited to the table to talk about it. So my thought was more, if they really wanted to have a better hit, they should have waited until the conference began. Are you saying your thought maybe is that it could have been intentionally disruptive, but not necessarily the Islamic State?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That because the whole world was going to meet in Paris to try to save our planet and stop global warming or climate change, that this could have been done more to brainwash us. I'm not saying that it was evil Muslims that did that. I mean, I understand, they could always get some kids, and do that. I mean, for example, 9/11, 2001, we were told out of 19 hijackers, 15 were from Saudi Arabia. And it's easy for somebody like Osama bin Laden to go over there and get these, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids and say, you got to do this, for God. And if they're being brainwashed, then I'm just, I think that a lot of this could have been done just to put us in the direction that they want to go. Here's an example. If you're turning on mainstream media, you turn on Fox News, and you see over in the Middle East, somebody on his head is just a scarf. All you can see is his 2 eyes. He's got a scarf over his head, but he hit somebody. And my God, and then again, a couple of days later, it happens again. But all you can see is these 2 eyes because he's got a scarf on his head. But because of that, they say, hey, America, send your troops over to that country. Oh, no, not Iraq, not Afghanistan. Send them over to this country. Send them over to Syria. But if some country, let's say Great Britain, wanted us to send our troops over to Syria, how hard is it for them to get somebody to put that scarf
You're saying that and I don't like to use the word Great Britain. I like to use the United Kingdom because they united all the kings way back when to make sure they control the economy. And what you're saying is very simple, is that you believe it might have been a false flag to take the mind off of global warming. Is that what you're trying to say?
Right, right. And we fought the mighty British at the town of New Orleans. Remember when we were fighting the British way back, like in 1814? And I'm just saying, why are they such friends of ours that when they ask us to send our troops to a country, we go and do it? Well, okay, no, I'm sorry, Bonnie. I think I'm in your way. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you for yielding to the senator from whatever, yielding to your time. I do appreciate that. I also appreciate your point of view. I don't want to travel there too far because that leads to a conversation from my point of view about false flags and about the way we're being manipulated by the collusion, let's say, of the CIA, which to me is, I've just been reading about mind control and victims of mind control, and I mean way beyond TV commercials or the way we are commercialized on a daily basis, and the thought control, thought police, well, it's not necessary, but the control of our thoughts, the shaping and directing of our thoughts and our ideas and our conclusions, for that matter. But I have for a long time doubted that September 11th, 2001 was what we were told it was, and it just doesn't make sense to me with the evidence that has come my way about it, including the planned collapse of building number 7. I think it's number 7. But if we drift in that way, and we could, then it takes me a little bit away from some of the things that I still have on my list. I'd like to return to that, but still with a nod to what you're saying, Dennis. And what way are we being manipulated, and what are we being manipulated to think, and how are we being manipulated to act? And I hold our media greatly responsible for that. Why for such a long time I feel like my intention has been to be a journalist in my own way and find other ideas and try to bring them forward. Returning though to my list, and I know I mentioned previously that on the 15th of December, which is what it is this day, 2015, I discovered an fairly deeply embedded tick on myself. I just had no idea, even though it's been pretty balmy, pretty warm in this part of the world. And my honey's away, so I didn't really get to have the kind of careful tick check that we do in the summer, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day because of the onslaught of this and having had fitness. So I am in this thinking of living in fear. This form of entomological warfare had gone awry, or maybe it's a direct hit, I'm not really clear which it is, has an impact that is felt directly on my body and in my spirit and my being. Now of course, I removed the tick and with the very wonderful Tom tick removers, but it was pretty deeply embedded, and we have some antibiotic cream that I put straight on the little wound that is inflamed around it this morning, and put a Band-Aid over it, and called in my spirit helpers actually and said, please take this from me. If this is disease, and it can be as many as I think we're up to 10 possibilities, multiple systemic infectious disease syndrome, as Dr. Horowitz calls it, author of the book Why Can't I Get Better? So this complication, even if I have a strong immune system again, it may not be able to handle the stew of infectious diseases that may be now finding their way. They're in my blood. If they were in the gut of that tick, they are most likely in my blood again. So I'm feeling terribly sad, actually. It's funny, it brings up, it's almost like getting a diagnosis of cancer, maybe. I know I shouldn't be comparing it with that necessarily, but still, it's that sitting with something that is perhaps about to take you down. And of course, I can do another round of doxycycline, but it's not a cure. And it doesn't necessarily affect things that are not bacterial, and there are viruses potentially also in the guts of these infected ticks, who are as much victims, as far as I'm concerned, as those of us who are being made sick by biological warfare. It's funny, I find my way back to that conclusion of the place I like to dwell. Forgive me for doing that after stating that I want to not do that anymore, but I also am feeling the great potential that I am going to, in the next day or two, begin to feel perhaps chills and headaches and the familiar system that goes into effect with an infected tick. But on another note, I wanted to speak about the apple. COO Tim Cook, writing a letter to him, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm going to send it probably priority one of those mailers so that it will take up some space on his desk or his secretary's desk. But why would I be writing to the chief operating officer of Apple? By the way, their address is Infinity Loop. Oh, no, Infinite Loop. Isn't that funny? Infinite Loop. All right. They just sort of commandeer whatever they want to, don't they? Even Infinity has been taken over by the techno-Nazis. Okay. Sorry, I digress. All right, Diane on to Howard. Oops. All right. Anyway, what am I doing always here? We just bought a new computer. And because it's a computer for a not-for-profit, and because the not-for-profit does not have a credit card in its old-fashioned sort of way, we borrowed one of the credit cards from one of the board members, and a young whippersnapper went online and ordered a restored Apple computer. My first experience with a Mac instead of what they call a PC, personal computer. But so it's a rehabbed once and rebuilt, I guess is the right term. And this young fellow who knows a lot about computers used our board member's credit card number, and we ordered it. And because it was being ordered online with the use of someone who is not himself a not-for-profit organization, we were charged the tax. This is months ago now. I have since made email requests. I have filled out their survey online about whether I felt that I had good treatment. Did everything go well with the transaction? Did you receive your computer? Are you happy? And an email to the sales tax at apple.com people, assuming there might be some people there. And the survey in which I said, yes, but we need the $58.03 back because we are a not-for-profit, in spite of what you might think, because one of our board members paid for this with his credit card. We are not supposed to be paying tax, and we want it back. Thank you very much. All right. Then subsequently, 3 phone calls to Apple. Those people are so friendly. I think they're all in their mid-20s. They are so trained to be so friendly and really incompetent ultimately, but they, all three of them, really tried to help me. And they couldn't believe that I hadn't heard back from the sales tax at apple.com. They couldn't believe that I wasn't, oh my gosh, are you sure it didn't end up in your spam? Or just look again. Well, fortunately, I saved my letter I had sent to them, and I'm going to print it out with the canceled check that was written as reimbursement to our board member. And I'm going to send all of this to Tim Cook and see what happens. I just thought maybe he would take it on as one of those, sort of philanthropic, we're the good guys. Really? We're the good guys. And we want to make sure that your little not-for-profit organization does not pay tax. So, of course, we're going to reimburse you. This is sort of my fantasy about how this will unfold. I'm quite sure that my friend Jeff Beller probably has a couple of thoughts on this, probably leading him back to the safe place of his conclusions. But I wouldn't mind turning over a little bit of my remaining time. Jeff, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, you just got back to the economy, Bonfire.
I thought maybe you'd think I did.
You did, and the interesting, and you've hit the economy over and over and over again, and we are so tied up in it we don't even recognize it. That's the scary part of this. And then you spend all your life energy writing letters and texting and talking to these nice 20-year-old kids who are trying to make a living, and they're trying to pay off their student loans, and we're back to the same old economy again. It doesn't seem to stop, and we don't even realize it, and we're trapped in it. So this is part of the problem, I think, and I don't know if we have the right solutions, but I think we may. So
well, you know what? I wouldn't mind if you would like to. I probably have other things that I could add to my list, but you've given me such a generous almost 2 hours to get to pontificate and share my ideas. If you and Dennis and Susan would like to finish up and promote the human renewable energy measure and all that you're doing in the world, I wouldn't mind sharing my last.
You are actually part of our promotion. I mean, you're hitting all the problems, and we're saying it's pretty simple. When people say, well, what can we do with it? How do we institute this concept? Well, you don't institute a concept. You first understand the concept, and then you let individual people like yourself do what they do to institute how they think a concept that all humanity, no matter where you are, be it Syria or Africa or Indonesia or anywhere in the world, that all human beings, we've agreed upon an agreed upon measure that all human beings will have their basic needs met for 1 hour of their life's work. And that work, again, the name work has to be defined, because wait, Jeff.
Go ahead. If you said 1 hour, you mean 1 hour a day.
1 hour a day, right?
That's kind of important.
Okay, yeah, 1 hour. In other words, it would take you 1 hour a day to do your gardening, to take care of the kids, to do the stuff you need to do to help the people around you, which is part of the whole idea that. And there's so much, and the trouble with technology is the technology is built, and then the powers that be the 1%ers or the very wealthy, take that technology and they don't distribute it comfortably for human beings to have a better quality of life. They suck it in, they turn it into money, and then they manipulate that money, so they're taking your life away. We're suggesting that every human being in the world has about an hour of real work they have to consider doing, and you can determine that work any way you choose, and then they have a quality of life which gives them their needs met, not their wants. Wants is what makes us human beings. Our wants are totally different than our needs. And we must never forget that. That's what seems to make this so complicated, but it's not. We're all exactly the same as far as our needs, our required needs, food, shelter, education. Those never change. And we can, because of technology, it looks like we can do that with about an hour of work. Now, most people are going to want things better than their needs. So therefore, they're going to work longer if they choose to, but it's individual choice. And once we think that we've come to the understanding of this simple measurement, and it doesn't have to be called the HRM, we just named it that because we needed a name for it. I mean, you can name it anything you want. The question then is, if we've come to that agreed upon minimum measurement worldwide, will that in fact stop people from genetically modifying, well, geoengineering for the planet? And I had a big argument with somebody the other day, and she was from Peru, and I said GMOs could be a great thing if you took the money out of it, because nature does GMOs every day. Nature's constantly changing the way they modify plants, they modify people, they modify everything. GMOs work. So if we took the profit out of it, wouldn't be a bad idea to have GMO. It's just a question of, but the question is, the way it's set up now, the GMOs are doing tremendous damage. The modification of the air is doing tremendous damage. And by the way, please send us that poster so we can post it on Bridges Programming and Renew the Earth.
They've already sent it to you, actually.
I never saw it.
Okay, I'll do it again.
Okay, we'll make sure we see that.
Yeah.
Because I did not see that. And
I'll send you the text too of the letter that people could actually send to or give to get to their media outlet. Okay, well we might have missed it. We get a fair amount of emails, and Susan it takes me forever. So Susan's the one who's handling it. We always want volunteers to help us with this because we're physically running out of space. I want to have you all thank you very much for listening. You've listened to Bonfire, and this has been World Call In, which is a worldwide program, and we are getting people from all around the world. So we are now who respond to us, which is amazing. Thanks again for listening. If you look, we're going to go over to our closeout song, which is about energy, and that's so I'm looking at the other monitor now. And now you see me being the sound up. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Susan. And thank you all for listening. Thank you all, too.
Energy. Ciao. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.
Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake.
Cars and farms and factories and trucks.
Supplies go down, our prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees.
Even trash converts to biofuels.
Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world.
We're here to spread the news.
So energy, energy.
It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.